Welcome. This topic will be the last of the recorded topics while I'm gone on my trip to sunny Orlando. I know you're jealous. I'll be working down there though, promise. So this particular one will be a little shorter than the one on Monday, which was pretty lengthy. So that's kind of good news, I guess. Again, I'm trying to do this in the kind of TED Talk variety, which is to say shorter than like an hour-long lecture. Trying to keep it between the 10 to 20 minute range. Probably knowing how long-winded I am, I'm probably going to be in the 20-minute range. But I have given this one before, so hopefully it'll be fairly short. It's an awareness level. I'm just trying to make you aware. We're not really trying to make you an expert in what we're going to do today. In fact, there's not going to be a homework assignment or anything like that. It will, of course, be covered on the test. Speaking of homework assignments, you do have homework due on Friday. Don't forget, that's the work sampling assignment there, the problems that are posted on Canvas. I did correct those, by the way, for those of you who pointed out that the first time I posted a PDF of our classroom slides instead of the homework assignment, that's been corrected. Obviously, if for some reason you can't access it, you need to let me know ASAP through Canvas. But anyway, that's due on Friday. I believe I said 4 p.m. You can look at the time there on Canvas. So upload that. It's not a big written assignment like it was with the Rula Reba stuff. So I really do want a on Canvas uploaded PDF, not a Word file, not a series of different files. Just create a document, do it in a professional way. Have the answers. Yes, there's math, but I'm sure you guys are all smarter than me. You can figure out how to get that into a single PDF document. I know you can do it. And yes, I realize I'm asking a little more of you than just handing in a piece of paper, but I think that level of professionalism is important. And so in this assignment, I do want that. So anyway, that's due on Friday. Don't forget about that. Don't forget about the discussion post that's either was available yesterday or is available later today, depending on, I guess, depending on what happens between now, when it's now for me, which is Friday of last week when I'm recording this, and Wednesday when you guys are there while I'm away. But anyway, the anticipation is it's available for you already. So don't forget about that. It does require you to do a little bit of out-of-class work, an assessment of an ADA type implementation, or I should say ADA accommodations for those with disabilities who might be using a public place. So anyway, that's available on Canvas. So take a look at that. Don't forget about that. And I will be back on Monday, and we'll hit the ground running with usability, which is one of my favorite topics. In fact, it's probably one of the most timely of topics in ergonomics that you could have at the conferences that I've been going to while I've been traveling these last few weeks. I hear about usability constantly, and not from the academic eggheads, right? It's from the working engineers out there, from the other professionals as well, not just engineers, business folks. So anyway, it's something you'll face very often, I believe, in your career, regardless of whether you work in ergonomics or you just work in some other engineering domain. So anyway, pay attention, be here next time. I'll be back. It'll be live, no more recordings, at least as far as I know. All right, with that said, let's get to it. Our topic for today is macroergonomics. It's a great term. It's one of those terms that may or may not communicate its intent from its title. If you are an economist, then you've heard of macro and microeconomics. And those terms have been around for quite a while. Micro referring to more localized things, and macro referring to kind of national or even global things, large-scale economies, not just your personal finances and that kind of thing. Well, ergonomics kind of can be broken up in a similar fashion. So, what is micro versus macro ergonomics? Well, as you know, The goal of ergonomics is to fit the task to the person. I can't say that goal enough. Fit the task to the person. But by that definition, you notice it's singular, task singular, person singular, very small scale. Not that that's not important. In fact, maybe the devil is in the details a lot of times with ergonomics. But it's not large scale. It's not multiple millions of people or hundreds of people or even tens of people, really. It's very individualized. I like the very individualized workstation right there. Applied to a whole organization, you get macroergonomics, or applied to a whole industry or something like that. Fitting the work system to the people might be a kind of plural way of working the goal of ergonomics or the goal of macroergonomics. Perhaps it's even fitting the work system to society, right? If we're designing a system that everyone's going to use, the highway system, the air transportation system, the tax codes, right? These are all systems that have a function, and no matter what you think about ergonomics, if you broaden that goal large enough, fitting the whatever to the people, instead of fitting the people to the system, then there's got to be something we can apply from ergonomics to any system, no matter how large. So anyway, that's the idea of macroergonomics. From a business point of view, you're usually talking about your own organization, your company, your corporate office, your government entity, or whatever it is that you're working at. So we're not really talking, say, if you're in the Air Force, we're not really talking about your unit. We're probably talking about a larger division than that, you know. But still, same idea. So it's a holistic scale. That's the point. It's a holistic scale. It's taking the same principles of ergonomics and applying them more holistically. And that should be just a multiplying effect, right? You know, you just do it, duplicate, replicate, multiply, and you were good. But you know, it doesn't really work that way. We kind of know that. We know that from any other engineering principle. It's not like we can just, well, if we want to design a bridge, first design, you know, 1 foot of it, and just multiply it together. And I'm sure it'll all work out just fine. They'll all interconnect. So if you want to learn how to have an airline, first learn how to fly one plane, and then just multiply that. And I'm sure it'll all work out smoothly, and there will be no thing. Well, that's just not true. If you've taken probability and statistics, which you should have if you're in this class, you know that we cannot treat every variable as though it's independent. We'd like it to be independent, at least mathematically. It's very convenient. Unfortunately, it's just not true. They have interactions, and we study those interactions, and we recognize that things are synergistic. They work together, or sometimes they're penalizing in that they work against each other. And these things just are not independent. So we cannot just take the same principles applied to one person and apply them to everybody individually and assume that the whole organization is going to be a happy, comfortable, safe, working system. It just doesn't work like that. So what are we doing in macroergonomics? Well, we're looking for misfits, and I want you to remember this. Misfits. That's, you know, it's not a highly technical term, okay? It's just the idea that something's not right. Something is mismatched. Capabilities are not in sync, okay? Goals are not working together. People are pulling in opposite directions, and that kind of thing is so common that we almost think it's the only way it can be. It's just that fundamental to life or something like that. Think about your family. Think about your roommates if you live with roommates. Think about our class team project thing that you might be working on, maybe in this class, maybe in another. Think about any organization, however small, in which you participate, and it won't take very long for you to find a mismatch between some aspect of the organization, individuals or group aspects, and another. There'll be something that seems out of whack, right? Doesn't take, I'm sure you've already thought of something. Macroergonomics then has been studied not for a terribly long time. It's a fairly new subdiscipline of ergonomics. Not that aspects weren't around for a while. Frederick Taylor, one of the first IE pioneers, was essentially doing this. he said, you know, there's no reason that we have to separate making money, being highly productive, with being safe and being efficient. There's no reason we have to separate these things. They all work together, right? So that was an early macroergonomic way of thinking, right? They're not individualized components. And in fact, a lot of what we've done as ergonomists has been convincing those in productivity that, you know, we're not out to get them. We're not taking away their productivity in the name of us. It's not all a trade-off in every case. Sometimes we can actually help each other. So I like this quote from this book by Hal Hendrick, among others, I guess. And it's probably the main work in this field, at least the first main work. It is entirely possible to do an outstanding job of ergonomically designing a system's components, modules, and subsystems, right? That's engineering work, but fail to reach relevant systems effectiveness goals because of inattention to the macroergonomic design of the overall work system. In other words, we do a bang-up job on all the individual design components, products, everything. But we just still don't meet our objectives because of how they interact. So we look at this from a balanced model point of view. Okay, we consider everything. Okay, there's the human that's right in the middle. That's kind of an ergonomic way of thinking, right? Put the human in the center and let everything else evolve around it instead of the other way around. But we think we have tasks, we have the organization, we have the environment, both kind of, you know, from a green thinking environment, right? But we also have kind of just the overall environment in which we work, tools and technology, and you could probably draw a few other bubbles there. All of these elements interact. They're not standalone elements. They have interconnections, right? And it's, you know, a little drawing here, it looks like that tasks don't interact with tools, but, you know, we know that that's true, right? We know that the environment interacts with the organization. So please don't think that we're in any way trying to insinuate these things aren't all interconnected with my two-dimensional model. Misfits happen when all the elements are not designed to work together. In other words, when we've designed one independently of the others. That's where the misfits occur. That's where we look for them. Look for them in the interactions. Look for them in the mismatches between perhaps objectives and performance. Look for them in just the frustrations of the individuals involved. The humans are right in the middle of that little diagram. That means they're interacting with all of these things pretty much simultaneously. So us humans are going to recognize the individual problems before perhaps the environment sees a negative impact. At least that's what we think. So what are these misfits, right? Well, misfits, whatever they are, certainly have quite the impact. They can affect safety, right? A misfit in the macroergonomic system can have serious safety consequences, regardless of what kind of hazards or PPE are present or what kind of control devices you've got in place. Misfits can certainly impact productivity. No doubt. No doubt that a poorly organized system makes a big difference in productivity. In fact, I would argue that when you get to know corporations, it's not so much the quality of their products or even the investment they make in capital expenses that really determine, you know, for the big companies in a single industry, what's the difference between one company and the next. It's really just how they run their business, right? How they run it, not the products themselves. A lot of times the products themselves are virtually independent. I mean, what's the real difference between a mid-sized sedan from GM and a mid-sized sedan from Ford? We may have our preferences, but in the end, don't they pretty much do the same, perform the same, have very similar characteristics? I mean, you can get different ones, but you can find one that's pretty much the same, right? But yet, they may have very different success rates. Their productivity can be very different, and a lot of it has to do with how they operate their interconnections here, the overall organization and work model that they run, not necessarily the products or even the people. Efficiency is kind of like productivity, I suppose, as well as quality, right? You're more likely to have high quality, fewer defects, fewer returns, fewer errors made if your misfits are identified. Otherwise, that's where the quality kind of things come up. So what are some example misfits? And these are just examples. Workers lack the skills and knowledge necessary to do what it is they've been asked to do. We may make assumptions. They may make assumptions. We may, we trained them 4 years ago. What's the problem? Okay? This is just like the old system. There's no reason we need to retrain. Well, we ordered this from the same vendor. Surely it works the same way. We just handed it to them out of the box and told them to go do it. There's a lot of things that could evolve to where the workers may be perceived to have the skills and knowledge and not have them, or vice versa. Workers may have the skills and knowledge but be perceived not to, and that really becomes a problem too, because maybe they're not free to make the decisions they need to make. There could be disagreement about policies, okay? So there's not buy-in on policy. So there may be a managerial policy made without input of all the stakeholders, and even if it's a good policy, then, but we don't have buy-in, so adhering to the policy doesn't work. Or perhaps it's a bad policy because it didn't get designed with the stakeholders' input, and so the policy doesn't even work and everybody knows it, right? These are all things that you're probably familiar with in your own organizations, your own experiences. These are mismatches. Poorly suited technology, okay? Asking people to work with technology that is poorly suited, and that doesn't always go in this direction where it's older technology, out of date, and we need something newer. You know, sometimes we're handing someone a very complicated, high-tech piece of equipment, right? Remember those of you who were in 311, I asked you guys last semester to do a time study lab with an app that we downloaded to iPads or Android tablets, that a stopwatch would have been easier for you to use, right? We all determined that that would probably happen, and sure enough, that was kind of the case, right? That technology was in the way. It was a bad mismatch, or a misfit, if you will, poorly suited technology. Environmental damage from the organization. That's a misfit, right? The organization does not need to damage the environment in which it operates, certainly in the environment which its customers, whatever those customers may do or be, wherever they may be, harming the environment is a mismatch, right? It's not the intended product, right? It's some non-intended product occurring. And then there are external factors, right? Some external factor is preventing the work from occurring or getting in the way. You know, this is a picture from Crimea right now, which is undergoing quite the turmoil. I'm sure it's pretty hard to just go and do your business at the supermarket, right? If you're a stocker, okay, with the millions of unrest. I don't actually know how many people live in Crimea, but thousands, I guess, of soldiers and hundreds of thousands of citizens not exactly going about their daily activities in the same way they're used to. Those external factors are obviously, causing issues, and who knows if the system is designed to handle them very well. And those, this is a temporary example, we hope, of external factors, but perhaps external factors could always be there. Who knows what they are? Social pressures, I don't know, lots of other issues could occur. So, how can macroergonomics help? What can we do? Okay, well, we can analyze the whole system, and we should analyze the whole system. By golly, most of us in this room are industrial engineers, and a lot of, although we don't here at this school, a lot of industrial engineering academic departments have changed their name to industrial and systems engineering. There are a lot of systems engineering jobs out there. In fact, the conference that I'm going to go to in a couple of weeks is called the Industrial and Systems Engineering Research Conference, put on by IIE, which is our departmental or discipline-specific professional society. So everyone's recognizing that industrial engineers ought to be about the system. Well, certainly in ergonomics, if we're a sub-discipline here, we ought to be about looking at the whole system. Yet probably most of what we've done in this class and in 311 last semester, for those in there, were to focus on smaller subcomponents, okay? Or we define that whole system to be a fairly small thing, something that one person is interacting with or a couple of people. Well, by golly, we ought to be analyzing the whole darn system. Whatever system you consider yourself to be a part of. Now, we could always just ramp that up all the way to the entire globe, you know, all 7 billion people doing everything they do, and that may be unrealistic. Perhaps there are some people who do need to analyze it at that level, but in general, you're analyzing at the level at which you can affect change. And maybe not you personally, but you as you know, your department or your boss's boss's boss or something like that. Anyway, how far up will your recommendations for change go? And however far they go up, that person or that level of management or whatever, how much change over what part of the organization do they have control? In other words, look at as large of a system as you can and still have the ability to affect it positively. That's the whole system. Well, and maybe even go a little bigger, right? You never know. Don't limit yourself. That doesn't mean it's easy. Analyzing the whole system is complicated. Determine the fit of each element in the system. Wow, each one, right? Here's an organizational chart for a manufacturing system of some kind, and you can see you may not be able to read all the individual items there, but you know, you've got sales, and you've got outsourced things. You've got some work in progress and some components here. You've got various inventory control systems. You've got other activities going on there that, without knowing exactly what all is involved, you know, HR gets involved. So there's lots of issues there, lots of different components. Some of those components are kind of physical. Some of them are human components. Some of them are more system lines that are on paper, they don't really exist, right? It's just how, you know, it's all part of the system. It's all part of that. Remember that circular map where the human was in the middle? We're in the middle of all this. How do the elements fit, right? How do the HR policies? You know, we've got new HR policies. We all must attend sensitivity training for gender-specific cooperation at work once a month. How does that decision, a policy, how does that affect the other system? Now, it may affect it positively in that we grow in a little bit more of appreciation for one another. That's a positive effect, but it's silly to assume that's the only effect. And that's usually what happens, right? The decision maker says, you know, we need to improve our respect for diversity and our sensitivity and our ability to cooperate among the diverse staff that we have at this thing. So we're going to institute this thing without considering what other ripple effects flow through the system. You know, does that make overtime have to happen in order to get the product out? And overtime really costs us a lot in manufacturing. Okay, that's where the highest pay is. And that overtime really we're very, very tight margins. It really puts us on a couple of product lines. It's going to really challenge our ability to make a profit. And so then those product lines might get dropped next year. But if those product lines get dropped next year, then we're going to have to lay off some people, all because we all had to take sensitivity training. Now that may be a little bit of an exaggeration, but not much, okay? And I have nothing against any one part of that. I'm just saying we analyze the whole system. And how do things fit? Is that a mismatch? Okay, is there a misfit somewhere? Something's not fitting the way it's supposed to, right? I'm sure that's not the intent to cause layoffs if you add some training, okay? That doesn't make any sense. But it could happen, or at least could you know, tip the scale a little bit in one favor or another. Consider aspects other than just changing the job, okay? So we focused a lot in this class about doing assessments, evaluations of jobs. We've talked about design, how do we improve things. But that's, you know, that's one aspect of ergonomics, right? There may be other things we can do besides change the job, okay? There may be broader strokes we can take. We can make people aware of things. Right? We can bring the organization together in some fashion so that everyone is aware of what's going on. Okay? We can map out some of these changes and how they ripple through one another and really kind of understand the interconnectivity between all of these various components. Okay? And then we can, you know, we can make policies, I guess. It's one thing we can do. I don't know, what else could we do? You guys think about it. What other things can you do to help solve some of these problems besides just go in and make a physical change to the job? We don't need to think that's all ergonomics can do, okay? We can understand anywhere that we can improve the system to better fit the system to the people, okay? Any change we make, not just changing how the work is done. Companies have many macro level concerns, okay? Not just ergonomics. A few decades ago, people really realized that, you know what, looking at quality problems, errors, defects, just from a single process point of view, why are we having so many welding errors and defects? What's wrong with our welding process? Why are we having so many assembly errors, right? What's wrong with the assemblers? Instead of doing it that way, they really started to think of the whole organization from that organizational level. How do we affect quality positively from an organizational, from a top-down point of view, okay? Yet still empowering the people at the lower end of the organization to also affect positive change. So, you know, and hence, first total quality management, then Lean, Six Sigma type things were born, right? And now companies adopt that in a holistic way, right? It's not in a hodgepodge here. You know, you're not going to have 3 out of 15 assemblers that are doing Lean Six Sigma. That doesn't make a lot of sense because they pass their product to the next person and then it's wasted. So anyway, that's one thing. You've also seen sustainability, green issues and green investment and things like that become really a holistic concern, a macro level concern for a lot of companies. We don't just think about individual waste streams at a particular polluting factory. I probably need to do something about how much carbon we're putting out of this one smokestack. You know, GE's not thinking like that. They're thinking on a much larger scale and how all of their policies and systems and how they're training really and future product development and everything is going to affect their sustainability in the future. Sustainability broadly defined. Okay, that's a macro level concern. Everybody knows about it. It becomes everybody's problem, kind of, right? Why can't we incorporate ergonomics at the same time we're incorporating some of these other very popular macro concerns? So, here's a kind of a document, I suppose, a book, edited by several people. This is a particular kind of chapter, I guess, in this edited book. Corporate Sustainability as a Challenge for Comprehensive Management. It's from a few years ago. And then the particular chapter was Human Factors, Business Excellence, and Corporate Sustainability. Differing Perspectives, Joint Objectives. I like that. Differing Perspectives, Joint Objectives. See, they're putting human factors and then business excellence, in other words, quality, and sustainability all together. They're all the same thing. And notice they have all these different viewpoints here, right? Let's see. Customer satisfaction, benefits for all members of the organization and for society. That's part of quality, right? Participation of all its members and aiming at long-term success. Okay, well, golly, I could say that about sustainability. And sure enough, I do. Meeting the needs of the firm's direct and indirect stakeholders without compromising its ability to meet the needs of future stakeholders. All right, sounds good? Well, ergonomics is that way, right? A lot of the things we're trying to prevent, negative things in ergonomics, are long-term things. They're not tomorrow, right? In fact, that's usually the problem. People will sacrifice next year for tomorrow, to make a little extra money tomorrow, or just to get home a little faster, or maybe not even for any good reason. They'll sacrifice next year. Well, that's not very sustainable. It's not sustainable ergonomically. So what is the common joint objective? Well, satisfaction of the human needs, right? You guys probably have talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm not going to go into it now. These things work together. They're not independent. So, ergonomics and sustainability. How do they work together? Well, this connection is very new, by the way. Very few people have implemented this connection. There is, if you're familiar with LEED certification in building design, green buildings, if you will, they've begun to consider, out of a 100-point scale, to decide if you meet your LEED certification, 2 points related to ergonomics. So, you know, I guess that's 2%. We can do a little better, but at least it's on the list. Okay? The fact is, true sustainability does not just focus on the environmental concerns, right? Even outside of the ergonomic world, sustainability is broader than just environmental concerns, just broader than going green, okay? There's profit, okay? In fact, there's these 3 Ps, profit, people, and planet, okay? So sometimes they'll call it economic, social, and environmental concerns, or the 3 Ps, profit, people, and planet. Remember the 3 Ps, profit, people, planet, okay? So we want to sustain all of those things, not just one of them. Succeeding today without compromising our ability to succeed tomorrow, right? Well, ergonomics does this. There's opportunities for synergy. Synergy means we get more together than we would have individually, right? What misfits can we correct to benefit an organization's macroergonomics and its green initiatives? In other words, when we're figuring out, and you will in your companies, your company will take on sustainability at some level. It might be just regulatory, but most likely it's going to be beyond that. They're going to see it as a goal to meet, just like we see diversity. That's another one we didn't mention here, diversity. It's a macro level goal. We no longer just look at individual units and say, you know, we just don't have enough women here. I guess we should go hire some more women. Right? We think bigger than that. We think, what's the value of organizational diversity? And we go out and we actively recruit, and we don't just do it when we have a problem, and we don't just do it at small levels. We do it as a large organization. It's what we do, and the more we can do, the better. Right? That's diversity initiatives, and we value it as a corporate value or as an organizational value. Right? Same thing with this stuff. What values are you going to be pursuing in sustainability? And when you're identifying where the misfits are there, you know, what we're doing that's causing problems, open your eyes to the idea that a lot of those same misfits might also be causing ergonomic issues, okay? That they're not separate. And let's go ahead and take the extra step to solve them both at the same time. And monitor them both at the same time and look for misfits in ergonomics that actually could have value in sustainability and vice versa. So that's kind of what I mean by what can we do. How can ergonomics piggyback onto the changes that are already taking place in the name of sustainability? People are designing new facilities to be green first in the design phase, and that's terrific. Don't try to fix the problems after you've done the design. It's much more expensive and very difficult to do. Do it from the drawing board up. Well, by golly, go ahead and take the extra, 1% cost added on and do that ergonomic fixes then too, right? Design your building not just to have good green thinking and green, sustainable, low carbon, low energy use. Go ahead and design it to be people friendly too. What misfits typically arise during quality improvements and lean transformations? You're going to go through and you're going to do quality things. By the way, the paper that I'm presenting that's got me away from you guys right now, it's one that one of my grad students did. It's on using Kaizen to do ergonomic changes. And Kaizen is one of those lean tools that we like to use to sort of identify where the problems arise and that kind of thing. What problems arise when you're trying to change over things into a lean way of thinking? Well, guess what? A lot of those same problems arise when you're trying to do ergonomic changes. And the same misfits that you identify will work both places, will help you solve both problems. And so again, take advantage of that synergy. Get both things done. What changes do we anticipate in the name of Lean Six Sigma that would also benefit ergonomics? How are we going to improve quality? Training? Empowerment of workers. I'm not a Lean Six Sigma kind of person, but you guys, a lot of you are getting that certification. What do you do? What are the tools you have at your disposal, right? Well, guess what? Some of that stuff will benefit ergonomics too. The goal of macroergonomics is a fully harmonized work system at both the micro and macro levels, which result in improved productivity, job satisfaction, health and safety, and employee commitment. It's another quote from the book. Do you get all that? Micro and macro. We put it all together. We apply it, we multiply it where that works, but we don't leave it there because we know that just multiplying something doesn't mean it all works together, right? If one person is great, 10 people are greater, well, maybe, maybe not, right? How many of you have a pet? How many of you then have 5 pets? Okay, it's just not 5 times the fun. Trust me. Same thing with children. right? So there's more complexity involved. So let's be aware, but let's also recognize that we can meet this goal, or at least we can get close to the ideal. We can actually see positive results. We just have to commit to it, be aware of it, and look for those misfits. Thank you very much. Now, well, I did it. I went about 30 plus minutes instead of 20, but that's pretty normal for me. You'll still get out a little early. Let me just wrap this up, say that, as I said, I will be back in class on Monday. I will see you guys there. Don't forget your homework on Friday. And these slides, if you haven't already found them, are available on D2L. Not D2L anymore, on Canvas. So, yes, on the way out, let me just say, I salute you. And trust me, the weather is horrible down here in Orlando today. All right. Oh, very important. I will be available Thursday morning, that should be tomorrow, for you guys for consulting on your projects, for those of you who need that. Some of you have already asked about it. So come and find me, send me an email, make an appointment Thursday or Friday. So it's not required because next week we have our midterm briefings, right? Don't forget about those starting on Tuesday. Next week you'll actually have to come in. You don't need a presentation, formal, like a slideshow, but you need to come with sort of your thoughts already presented on paper or in your head or something so that you can sort of educate us all on your project, where are your challenges, where are your accomplishments, where are you going, you know, maybe not a Gantt chart exactly, but kind of a informal Gantt chart of kind of where you've come and where you've gone would be helpful. So don't forget about that. That's starting on Tuesday in lab, Thursday for the Thursday lab group. So if you need to meet with me before then, I am available on Thursday and Friday of this week. So, all right, toodaloo.